Hi guys, it's really good to see you on one of these fireside chats. I've been wanting to sort of get you on board for a long time. I've been obviously following you for the last 10 or so years. It's really interesting to sort of see your growth and the strategy as well, which is I think has been a little bit different than lots of other ed tech companies that have been in the market. Yeah, great to have you on board.
Thank you, Nick. Great to be here.
Cool. Before we sort of really kick off into some of the sort of questions, I've really and I ask a number of companies this sort of question, and I think because I think it's really important for our listeners to understand where you've come from and what it means to you to be in the education sector. So I don't know if you can just give us a little bit of a feel for what are the values of Satchel or Team Satchel, sorry, and why education? Why is it so important to you?
Yeah, Nick, thanks so much for the opportunity. Yeah, great question. I mean, we've been in the industry now for 11 years, and it all started in the classroom. When I founded the business, I was a classroom teacher, and from that experience, I then became an assistant head teacher, and it was really then thinking about how do we focus on teachers who are in the trenches, and how do I build products and services to really support them. From those early days when we built our first product, Show My Homework, it was all about, how do we create a product that makes it really, really easy for teachers to be able to set work, for students to be able to know exactly what they need to do after school, and for parents to be in the loop. And that sounded like such an obvious thing, but I was really dumbfounded by the existing products in the market, and the things that stemmed from that were a core set of beliefs that have been with us for the last 10 years, which is really focus on solving problems, make products really, really easy to use, and go beyond just software. So we have an internal mantra here where we really focus on software and a service. And I think the latter uh, has really allowed us to have longevity over the last 10 years. We really deeply care about the service and the training that we provide. And yeah, we have a really strong team where we have always focused on like thinking outside of the box and looking at problems from a first principles. And so that's really helped us like design products in-house. We have such a wonderful team of educators, of product designers, software engineers, and it's a combination uh, of the ideas and mindsets that our team have that allows us to move at a certain pace. So I hope that's helped answer that question. Lou, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think just to touch on what Naimish has said, it's always been this commitment to the classroom, which is probably what sets us apart today when we look at our MIS. That's always been at our core, and it's been our mission to really enrich the whole classroom experience. And that is very much at the heart of the decisions that we're making today with our MIS. And the other thing that's always played a role is connecting the school community together. So the role that the teachers, students, and parents play, and it's one platform serving three very, very distinct voices, all with their very different needs. So that's another place that we've focused our efforts. But yeah, I think Naimish has touched on it already. It's wanting to see change in education. That's really in our DNA. It's not just technology that's going to meet the needs of customers, but we really want to provide technology that actually delights them, that they really enjoy using, that they maybe didn't even know that they needed to use. And that's been the same ever since the Show My Homework days through to where we are today. So yeah, we're really confident. I think technology can let people down, but service is really at our core, and it's one of the reasons why we believe we're going to be able to support many schools in the future. And that's always been our mission, just to be alongside teachers, students, and parents on this journey through their education.
No, amazing, I love it as well. I think fundamentally, you're talking about making sure there's a sort of like a frictionless sort of experience that that your users get by and I think people sometimes miss this about the service being really, really important. Not everybody, you can't solve all problems necessarily from a technology perspective. The services also, the wraparound services are part of your overall solution. And I think that's great. And I think the one thing is, I think you'd be quite renowned within the market as being quite innovative as well. I don't know if that reflects back into how you feel internally, but I think you are seen as quite an innovative company. There's a lot of positive talk about Team Satchel, and I won't excuse your blushes. I think I think that's definitely what people talk about in the marketplace for sure.
Thanks, Nick. That's really kind, and yeah, that's something we're proud about. Like I think with innovation, you have to be like intentional. So you have to invest. Like I've seen over the last 10 years, there were companies that I would look up to and inspired me. And I saw over the years they just stopped innovating. And sadly, when you're in the software game and in the SaaS game, where where customers are paying a annual subscription fee, it's critical that you have to keep investing, you have to keep innovating, because the customers demand that. But also just the way students, teachers, counselors, the way folks do their jobs change. And so you have to continue to evolve the way you build your products, the workflows that you build to support them be more successful. So it's something that you can never stop. And I think that's the dirty little secret. If you stop innovating and stop investing, then this market just moves really, really fast. So I think that's one thing. But we really try to keep things simple and put ourselves in the shoes of the end users. Sometimes we see in the market where we may be talking to procurement folks, right? And they're buying software off the back of a checklist, and they don't appreciate the nuances of the way we collect homework or the way we mark a particular piece of work. I'll give you one small example. Within our platform, I remember when I used to use other software, I'd go into my class and my students would submit the work, and then I'd have to download each piece of work. Whereas with Satchel, I have one button that says download zip folder, but not only do we download the zip folder, if you've taught in a classroom, particularly maybe some of the younger students, you'll realize that students don't necessarily save their work correctly. So you'll see lots of untitled, right? So what our software does is we'll automatically rename each file. So, so it's Naimish Gohil, Louise Raw. And these are just little things. So when the teacher downloads the zip folder, each piece of work is named accordingly. And so that's just one example of how we really try to think about how do we support those folks in the trenches. So yeah, innovation has always been core to us, and I'm so excited about the future. Like it's ridiculous. Like anyway, I'll pass it back.
That's okay. Do you know? I think what you're talking, we totally, agree with you. I think the one. I think sometimes like the G Cloud, it's obviously a great procurement framework to procure from, but I think sometimes it is a tick boxing exercise, and I think there's an element where you sort of go, no, understand the supplier as well, get the right partner, make sure that what are their plans going off into the future. There's so many other elements which I think people miss sometimes in their procurement, about the company, and also like you say, the actual experience I think sometimes is missed. The other thing I think with the education market, and you sort of go, it is a changing market. I totally agree. All markets change. We always have to adapt. But the one thing I would say is that I think suppliers are not having a go at any particular supplier. But I think there's an element with suppliers where educators are brilliant at understanding and innovating themselves, and they're brilliant within the classroom and being innovative, and they're great at understanding their pain points. But we're the ones, EdTech is the ones who understand technology. And those two things have to come together because they should be sort of going, here's some pain, and this is really hard to do. And actually, as a technology organization, tell me how you're going to solve that problem in the best way. With the new technologies that are out there now, how are you going to do it through automation, or it could be robotics, or where anything you want, or even through a service. So I think that, and I think sometimes some companies miss that. And that's why I think, like you say, there's elements where companies go in, and actually the experience for the user is not as strong as it should be.
Yeah, and it's all about removing the friction. I think that's definitely, when we look at innovation, AI is obviously such a big buzzword at the moment. And you look at any company right now, and they'll tell you that their platform is fully AI. And often it is just a wrapper, and there's not much going on behind the scenes. And when we focus on something, so we do have an AI tool within Satchel One, and it would remove the need for a teacher to go to ChatGPT and do what they're going to do on there. But we've not just embedded that, we've added so much more that the teacher would be thinking about anyway. What's the age range for the child? How can we add differentiated questions? How can we embed Bloom's taxonomy straight away into the lesson plan or the homework questions? So it's AI for education rather than for the sake of AI. And that's always how we'll try and look at innovation, that we're always doing it with education in mind.
Yeah, brilliant. No, absolutely. Yeah, I think that encompasses exactly what everyone should be doing in the sense of in EdTech. So I've got we sort of touched on it a little bit. You sort of talked about the MIS. So I'm really interested to understand. So most businesses, try and keep to their niche, mainly because that's where that's what they're known for. And I know it's not a massive jump or massive leap to understand, but why has Satchel gone from mainly the front office, the classroom, making working with teachers, and now you're starting to enter into the back office? So where was that decision come from?
So I think there's a couple of factors, Nick. And one of the things you'll find as we engage more and more is we're incredibly honest at Satchel. So if I look back at the pandemic was a difficult period for us because of course, schools were shut. There's no classrooms. And as Lou touched on earlier, everything we've done has historically been focused around building great products and productivity tools for teachers, students, and parents. So when the pandemic hit and there was no visibility of when schools were going to be opening, that really impacted our business. And that was further compounded by the government really endorsing Google and Microsoft tools. And so that was like a really significant fork in the road for us. And it made us really think about what is our product strategy moving forward, because with the best will in the world, it's very difficult to compete against free.
Yeah.
And in that moment in time, we had to really think about long term, even more than we usually do. And so that was the first reason. And as we started to think long term, it really dawned on us that if we imagine the technology stack where we've got, single point solutions, classroom management solutions, learning platforms, middleware, MIS, we've been integrating with management information systems through, middleware folks like Group Call and or XOD and Wand for many years. And in many ways, it's actually impacted the quality of service, the richness that we could provide our end users. And so that was really the main driver where we decided to invest several £1 million and decide that actually, you know what, we're gonna go down the technology stack and we're going to become the source of truth, and we're going to build a next generation MIS, which internally we look at it like it's really what does the operating system of a school look like in the future? because we believe it's so much more than just an MIS. Those were the main drivers. And, we've done, I mean, the velocity in our team is incredible. And I genuinely believe, like, for us, when we look back, it was the best decision we've made. It was a long-term decision. And that's always been, it goes back to, like, for Satchel, we want to be part of the fabric of a school. And I think us making this investment and having something viable and a really strong alternative to what is in the market is what is really exciting over the next 5 to 10 years.
It's also just a really natural evolution for us, because we have been from the classroom. The fact that we're very secondary first, that's really where we cut our teeth in secondary schools. We're classroom first, teacher first. It means that everything that we make is not just built to be understood by somebody in the back office or the administration team. And so we think we've got a really good opportunity here, because we've said it throughout. We always put the design of our application first and build it for the busy user. And so it felt like a natural progression to take that same experience and give it to everybody, give it to the attendance team who've got to deal with daily absences and urgent situations, with the behaviour team who are going to be enforcing school policy and making sure that both teachers and students are able to adhere to it because it's clear and it's consistent, and on-call teams who are rushing around with emergencies in the schools, all the way through to your welfare officers who are considering maybe all of the factors that are leading up to a safeguarding concern and not just the incident itself. And what we're able to do by moving from the classroom to the back end is we're bringing all that richness with us. So we're the polar opposite of the other MIS who started out as MIS and they're slowly building out their classroom management side. And we're bringing all of that great user experience and really rich data about the workings of the school. And so it's exactly that. It's being part of the fabric of the school, and being as lovely to use in the back office as it is at the front of your classroom. So yeah, it felt like a very natural step for us.
Yeah, for me, it sounds like a good business strategy in the sense of like you've already said, Lou, in some ways, you already in the classroom, they already understand the value of the data you're providing. Owning, not owning, but processing that data as well sounds like a natural movement in the sense of you can then aggregate and basically define what that data is going to look like going forwards as well, and what sort of trends you can pull out of it. So it seems quite a natural progression from that perspective. In fact, probably better than, like you say, than an MIS, which is back office, then trying to sort of become a front, a classroom sort of product as well.
It's a good time because as well, we do share the frustrations that our schools have with data extractors, third parties, syncing issues. We completely share the same feelings. So it allows us to also be fully accountable, and that's a scary thing, but it's a really exciting thing for us. We want to be, like Naimish said, the source of truth, and this allows us to do that finally.
Yeah, I was reading up that basically with AI as well now, some of that middleware might go away anyway. So there's a bit of a natural, you basically moving into the MIS world, or back office world, I think will potentially get easier without any of that integration anyway, which is a great place to be. I think I agree. I think it's a little bit like all the other processes from local authority down into schools, like with ATF files, and you sort of go, why are we doing that now? Why are we still using CSV files and transfers? It seems a bit mental to me, but I'm sure that will all go as well. How far do you think you'll go? Do you think you will start going into finance and obviously I'm not asking you to tell me all your anything is confidential, but do you perceive yourself going into that full sort of back office as well as still in the classroom, or do you think you'll stop at some point?
So for the moment, we have no plans to focus on like finance, payroll in those areas. We think those things outside of the MIS and the classroom management are just outside of our goals. So you could argue, you know, there are MATs out there who are looking for financial economic savings by having everything under one roof. I think there's a fine line here somewhere, and it's a difficult one because yes, that might be the holy grail, but to do that really, really well is incredibly difficult. And even those companies that we see that are offering those solutions, it's the stakeholders are just completely different. And we think personally that the real value is focusing on teachers, students, and parents. And there's a massive opportunity to reimagine the status quo of how all three of those stakeholders view information about education that is specific to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard problem to solve. And the only way you can do that is really looking at the whole. In order to look at the whole child, you need to look at information that sits in the MIS world and also in the classroom management world. And I think that's where we're really well positioned. And also that's where we would rather partner with folks that do finance tools, payroll, HR. That's not where we really get excited.
Yeah. So it sounds much more pupil focused in that, in the sense of that's where you want to sort of play. That's where your wheelhouse is.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and I think everyone's looking for that fully integrated system, and every provider's claiming to be that fully integrated system. And the truth is, nobody is completely. And we know for a fact that the newer cloud MIS on the market, if they were able to deliver everything that they say they do for classroom management, we wouldn't exist today. We work with their customers still on the classroom management side. So we know that there's strength there in what we're offering, and we know that there's a real need. And so we do want to approach it completely differently and be a bit of a challenger in the market and not be another cookie cutter MIS, because there aren't so many options out there for schools. And we really believe we are going to be able to offer them something that is quite an alternative to what is on the market today.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting. I think there's also the more you try and do, there has to be diminishing sort of returns over a number of years. You know, at the end of the day, if you buy a all-encompassing system that does finance, HR, payroll, everything, you know, where is the development going to be? You know, because ultimately, you know, most organizations only have X number of resources, which means the capacity to keep on developing. You know, you start to get to the point where some of that, maybe that new software doesn't get, you know, maintained at certain periods of time, and then, you know, then you start losing the you know, the solution to the need. You know, then you start sort of wondering, like you said, Naimish, ultimately this is a changing market. You know, all markets change, and if you can't keep up to date with all the changes with such a wide portfolio of product, then I think you know, you can be, over a period of time, you stop being able to support your customer base. That's what I was trying to get to.
And I think we've also seen you stop focusing on individuals who we're solving problems for, and then you move to, we need to solve a problem for this school or this MAT. And there's a real danger in that, like losing sight of like putting yourself in the customer's shoes. Sounds obvious. And you know, we've definitely made this mistake, but we try not to make the same mistakes. We make new mistakes.
That's where we all learn.
Yeah, absolutely. So
That's all good. No, I totally agree with you. And you know, without you having to tell us too much, but you know, where do you, with your MIS, can you give us a few examples where you think you will be different?
if we, let's say, for example, our exams module, right? Or our admissions module, or our attendance module. There are lots of examples where when we've looked at what's in the current market, a particular function might take you 10 clicks, right? And it shouldn't really take you 10 clicks. Because we've had the good fortune of not being first movers, we've been able to really look at it, again, without sounding like a broken record, but from a first principles perspective. And by working with a small group of pilots and folks that are in this day in, day out, they've been doing this for the last 5 years, listening to them, really listening to them, figuring out and understanding what their pain points are, and then being able to show them, actually, you can do it a different way is really the philosophy and thought process behind how we've been building out each of the building blocks for our MIS.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I mean, we could. There's probably other examples we can give you, but I'm just thinking about the recent feedback we had, Lou, from one of our pilot customers, and that was from the exams officer who's been doing that role for 10 years, and their feedback to us was, I can't believe this, how easy this was. So compared to what they've been doing before. So that's something like Lou touched on this earlier. It's something we're trying to really do with thought and consideration for every important aspect of the MIS, whether that's census, admissions, exams, you name it. That's how we're approaching it.
Excellent. And do you know what that is? I think is it goes back to my point about the ATF. So the whole admissions process to me is convoluted, takes too long, far too much manual in interaction. There's lots of things that can be automated in there. So the fact you're taking that approach, I think, is really refreshing. Yeah, for sure. And I know you say your velocity is strong in the development perspective, but I'm guessing that's why you're also being considered in your approach. And if what comes out eventually takes a little bit of time, then that's a good thing, yeah, because basically you're being considered up front in the sense of through that sort of discovery phase.
Yeah, I think this market is only going to grow, right? I've had a few discussions with this with different folks, but my view is, prior to the pandemic and schools moving to the cloud, it's one of the reasons why Sims had such a strong foothold. Having something on premise, even if it was broken, people were not willing to really move. But it required something like the pandemic for schools to move to the cloud. And I think once you're in the cloud, the bar is much higher in terms of quality of service and quality of product that's required. But at the same time, it's also easier for schools and MATs to decide they want to change.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, again, like, if you want to move mortgage providers or credit cards now or bank accounts, it's so much easier now compared to what it used to be before. We would rather go slower, and because we internally look at it like it's binary, right? I can't use the expression, right, that I would like to, because I would be swearing. But like it's it's binary. You got to get it right, and we would rather go slower and make sure we have a fantastic net promoter score, and not only customers that are satisfied, but to Lou's point earlier, they're delighted. They really enjoy using it, and they're getting new things out of it versus filling out forms, pressing save, and looking at it in a table, right? So I think, yeah, we're not going to move as fast. We're not going to grow our market share at a blistering pace, but that is very intentional. And I think if we do that, then I think we will be able to stand out, and word of mouth and everything else will take care of itself.
It definitely does in this market. Let's face it. I think schools are. I don't think schools. And I'm not suggesting this is about Satchel, but schools don't necessarily trust companies as much as they trust themselves and people like themselves. Other schools, other head teachers, other mat leaders, whichever. But we all do that to a degree. We're all part of a tribe somewhere, and we all basically trust the people that are more like us.
Completely. I think a big thing of that trust as well, or lack of trust, has come from schools being let down so badly in the past in EdTech. And part of that does feed into what we want to do. We do want to set a new standard for customer support. We don't want to fail schools in that way, and have this gold standard, whatever that looks like. We're working towards it. So that's definitely something as well that we're really mindful of as we're taking our time. It's how else can we actually service our customers at speed with the right information, and using new technology to push boundaries in that area as well. It's going back to the software and the service that we were talking about at the very beginning of this. And yeah, I think taking our time as well. We are in our infancy, definitely. But we're already working with our MIS, primary, secondary, sixth form colleges, private schools, international schools, nurseries. So we're on that journey, and we know for sure that we have to get it right with the MAT experience. And that's not something that we want to rush into, but we're really building, it's the building blocks of what experience do each of these schools need to have, and then how can we really deliver when it comes to the MATs. But yeah, we're lucky because we have been in the market for 13 years. So we're new kids on the block for the MIS, but we're not within education. And we've already supported over 4,500 schools globally. Naimish, you're saying at the moment we've got about 1 million daily active users. So we're getting so much really rich feedback from customers every day. And it's just applying that now to our MIS. So yeah, a very exciting place for us to be.
I agree. I think it's cool, and I love the fact you use the word delighted. Customers being delighted, because I think there's too many that just all go, no, they're satisfied. It works, yay, rather than delighted.
Nick, sorry, Nick, can I ask you a question?
You can.
It'd be good to pick your brains on this. So, one of the things that's potentially playing out in the market is a replay of the stranglehold Sims had, right? But now it's just done in a different time with different players. Do you see that as a risk to potential innovation, or some kind of locking down opportunities for new folks coming into the space?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I think, again, it comes back to the more competition, the more innovative the market needs to be, the more you have to then, strive for differentiation. You have to basically, stand out from the crowd. And I think, the more, and that's why, we're massive advocates for the fact that basically, maths and schools, I was doing a presentation only the other day with Nexus Group, which is very much about, don't just focus on necessarily the sort of, does it do behavior, does it do attendance, but really get into the nuts and bolts of it and understand how it's done. But also at the same time, try and find the right partner as well, because how are they going to help you? So with the budgets at the moment, and that doesn't mean that company has to give you money, but it's more along the lines of how they're going to create some efficiencies within, your current processes within maths or schools. Yeah, so really start focusing on, even the sustainability policies, how are you going to basically how are you going to help them, there's maths in the schools, be more sustainable? They've got lots and lots of other targets and strategies, which actually MIS companies, or any company actually, should be able to help and move the dial for the maths and the schools. But sort of going back to your point of, at the moment, with the probably two main challenges, if I'm being frank, you've got Arbor and you've got Bromcom, which are challenging Sims and are taking massive market share from them. I think Sims, when we get to the next report, will be even lower. And I think, if I'm being really honest, I think ultimately they'll go, they'll probably go in, I think maybe obscurity to a large degree at some point. I think, but the trouble is, what you don't want, even though I know both the other companies really well, and I know their CAs and stuff, but you don't want an Arbor and only Bromcom sort of a market. And I would say the same to them. that what you actually need is more and more competition. And it's not about the way that the key's got about a third of the market now. I think they will definitely grow even further. I think they're probably at the moment going to be heading towards the 50% mark at some point. I think Broncom will then be there with maybe 20%. So that's like 70% of the market. You're right. But and I don't think it's about that the key of taking on RM or Scholar Pack. I think it's more that there needs to be some other companies now that come out and go, we need to do things differently, like you're talking about. And I sort of know there's only really two of you that I sort of know that are probably in that sort of space, or maybe three. So Compass, maybe you, and there's a company actually, a small company called ET Ames, who are definitely doing things differently. But they definitely have got very 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 small market share, so it's quite tough for them. But I do think that wave needs to happen. Otherwise, do you know what? Schools and mats are going to get what they get rather than what they need. And I think that is going to be a big problem. That's a
Thank you.
long-winded way of answering your question.
No, that was good.
But yeah, I agree. And I think there's an element I would also say to mats, and I know there's been a 10-year procurement exercise coming out from ULT, but I would probably go reduce that down. What I quite liked about Juniper the other day, and I know that not many schools would move that quickly, but they've sort of gone. They're going for a proper SaaS model, like 3 monthly. I think it's 3 months. Every 3 months, you pay on a sort of 3 monthly basis or a monthly basis. I can't remember now, but I sort of quite like that. I think that's quite, and it's also a little bit sort of, good on you. Why not? Why not put your head above the parapet and say, actually, we're really good. We're not going to tie you down to any length of time in contract. We're going to act like what we believe. We believe we've got the best solution. If it is or not, that's for customers to decide. But they're putting, their heads above the parapet on that one, which I think is good.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
great. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, I think just the stark contrast of being backed into a corner and having a 3-year license hanging over you versus 3 months. That's exactly what the market needs. That's really good to hear.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the more people do that, and like I said, do I think schools will change every 3 months? Of course they won't. But the idea that they can go, this is not working for us. You're not delivering what you said you would, and actually, we are going to terminate it at the end of term or end of year, academic year that is. Then good, great, and Juniper will live and die based on customer satisfaction, and that's what it should be about. We don't create software for ourselves. We create software for, as you said, Naimish already. It's for the users. They're the ones who need it, not us.
No, I really like that. That's definitely something like me and Lou will definitely discuss that internally, because that's really your actions will speak louder than written contracts. So, and giving folks that flexibility, it also goes back to what your point. I think if you had companies doing that a bit more in a market that could potentially be monopolized, it really forces innovation, because you can't rest on your laurels, having hundreds or thousands of long-term contracts where you don't actually have to do anything.
I agree, and I think you'll then also find maybe more niche players. You might find that there's a sort of core MIS, and actually there's more niche sort of players around the outside going, actually we can do the emissions process far better than what you currently. So I think that it will create a bit of an additional what's the word, sort of another environment or an ecosystem alongside MIS, and that's not necessarily a bad thing either. All good.
And it's also potentially nice being in a world where we don't have to process checks. Ask for direct debits. You won't believe the number of checks we still get, from the post.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow! I thought checks were almost gone.
No, they're thriving.
Oh man! And where do you see the market going? So not necessarily just about MIS. So we've been talking about how MIS companies maybe need to change the way that they're and acting. We're talking there about, creating the next wave, which hopefully is going to be more innovative and more creative. So where do you see the market in the next, say, 3 to 5 years? What do you think it's going to look like?
I actually agree with a lot of your points, Nick, earlier. You set it out quite well in terms of how you think it will play out in terms of market share. I agree with you. I think there'll be 3 or 4 players that are significant. I believe, Satchel has the background, the history, the tech chops, and the ability to serve to be one of these important players. I also think there's going to be, again, I'm just following what you said. I think there's going to be some interesting ecosystems being developed once you now start to have all of these tools in the cloud. And I think there's some really interesting things that I don't know what they are, but I think there's definitely innovation and interesting products and business models that will stem from the fact that we've got the significant management information systems or school operating systems in the cloud. So I think that's something else that will play out. I think there'll continue to be a buy and build strategy, right? Majority of there's lots of, there's always been buy and build, particularly in the back office. And it's, Juniper, you mentioned, that's another example, Iris. It's interesting. A lot of those organizations are now starting to move more and more towards the front office. We internally never really call it front office. I always thought of that as banking, but
True.
Teachers, students, parents, that whole world and all the different types of business opportunities, I think is a natural path for folks to move towards. Lou, do you want to add anything?
I think with the movements in maths as well, it's just going to become increasingly important that providers are giving maths all of the options that they need, so that it doesn't also just become a monopoly in the market and then fully centralized choices in maths, because that is dangerous, and that would be a bad outcome. But I think if providers and maths have that common understanding that there is a way where schools can still have some autonomy and there is still choice and movement, it will require all of the providers to be finding ways where you can switch from one system to another more easily. There's been a lot in the news lately about how difficult it can be to leave certain providers, and the format that you get all of the data provided in. I think that's where all of the different organizations do need to work on that, so that there is still the choice. Or we're going to end up in a very bad situation where we do just have a couple of providers. So focusing on those types of needs, I think, is going to be a really important thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be as easy as you switch. When you move from one bank to another, we've all got to remember this data isn't ours, it's the schools. And ultimately, the controller, who's either the head teacher or the CEO of a MAP. And I think the idea that people or any business, and I mean any businesses, I'm not picking on anybody, but anybody who holds onto that data to slow down switching or even inhibiting switching because it's just too difficult, I think that's not providing the best service to the education market. Again, it comes back to, live and die by the quality of your service and your solution. Don't make it because of the fact is you're making it hard for somebody to leave. That's just, I think, immoral, especially when it comes to children's education.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree with you more.
I think it's something quite interesting you talked about, which is, the way that you look at it is that you're very much focused on children. That's why you are going into MIS, but not necessarily to any more of the sort of back office pieces. Do you think there's a strong need to sort of integrate some of the local authority systems? Because at the moment, you still, if we looked across the whole of education as a whole, there's the school systems, which have children's data in. You have local authority systems who have schools' children's data in. In fact, in some cases, a complete mirror, but on another system, which seems a bit bonkers to me. And then on top of that, you've got health and you've got social care and you've got things like Send, which are obviously run by local authority or mainly owned by local authority. And you sort of look at this and you sort of go that all these systems, including schools, are separate systems. Do you think you'd ever, and this is obviously asking a big want, because this is where I want it all to go to, but do you think you'd ever get to the point where you have this persistent child or a view of a child, a single view of a child, this persistent view across the whole of their education, no matter where they are or their needs, in the sense of what interventions are required or anything else like that. So you could almost get to a pure individualized learning path for a child, no matter what their background, what their particular needs might be. Do you think that's ever going to happen, or do you think that is just a bit of a pipe dream?
I think
Which case I'll stop talking about it.
No. I think it's great that folks like you do talk about it, because there's certainly more and more opportunities to do that. It's definitely not because of technological reasons. We have lots of other reasons, political, contractual. There's lots of other factors. It's not a technology issue. And I think, I mean, I am often shocked at like how some of these other systems that the local authorities operate. There are certainly opportunities to do more work in those areas to make sure everyone has a joined up view, right, of the child. I just think it's going to take time. We almost need, like, well, this might not be favorable, but we almost need someone like Elon Musk to take a look at some of our government systems. And look at it from a fresh lens, right? To strip out some of the bureaucracy and the red tape.
No, I agree with you. I think the Elon Musk representation would be quite interesting.
Yeah.
But I do understand what you mean. What about you, Lou? What do you think? Do you think there is going to be a greater leveler? Because I think it is about leveling up.
Leveling up, yeah. I think unless it's enforced, it's not going to happen. I think it's a great goal for us all to commonly want to get to, but I just don't see it happening unless it is enforced from kind of government policy. I think there's so many failings for students throughout their lives, and so I can't even begin to imagine the knock-on effect that it would have if you did have that true picture of the child's situation from sort of social education, health, welfare, the whole way through their education. I don't know what the answer is. I think you should keep talking about it, though, definitely, I would say. Sorry, so I can't add a lot there, and I'm not super optimistic about it, but I really like that you're talking about it.
Cool. And so from Satchel's perspective, what's the next 5 years? What they're looking like?
I think keeping the eye on the prize, which is, turn up every day, be really, really focused on solving problems, stick to our knitting. Is that the right expression? Stick to our knitting? Might not be. But stick to our core, stick to our core. And I think, we have some really, I've always believed that the best products and the best service, you may not win the battle, but if you have a long-term view, you'll definitely, have an opportunity to win the war. And I remember, Nick, when I started showing my homework, people look at me and go, oh, that's just a feature. Stop wasting your time. You won't believe the number of rejections I had. But I really believe that one little thing, homework, was central to, it was an everyday conversation that teachers were having, that students were having, that parents were having after school. And it turned out, I was right. And that allowed us to, expand on it. And so I think we just have to continue. Working in education is tough. There's lots and lots of pressures. But that's why I think, it goes back to, you've got to have a mission. You've got to be passionate about what we do, and you've got to bring people along the journey that share those same values, that have the same, dedication. There's lots of places that are much easier to work than that in schools, and of course operate or in private industry in education. It's a tough gig. But I think that's why, you need the mission. You need a mission and passion. And I think as long as we keep executing, keep grounded, do the basic things well, I'm really excited about us as an important player in the education market over the next 5 years.
Excellent. What about you, Lou?
I think keep going against the grain. Keep on asking, can we do this in a different way? Can schools do this in a different way? Keep parents in the loop. They've always been part of our product strategy. Parent involvement, we know, continues to be one of the most researched areas that can add value for students' learning. So really keep them front of mind. I mentioned it before, but set a new standard for customer support. I think we really want to do that at Satchel. We want to really differentiate ourselves that way. And take our time in getting the Mat experience right. We just know that that's going to be incredibly powerful once we can connect all those dots for formats. I'd summarize it in those points.
And would you say the same for any new company coming into EdTech? Would you say that, what you're just saying there, about making sure you have a mission that you stick to, you keep to the levels of passion and energy, and focus on good customer support are the three things that's a new company? Or is there other things that you think, if you were going to come into the EdTech market now, that you might have done differently, that you would like to give that advice?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I've expressed this before. I think so. Again, 10 years ago, you saw this. Well, 7-8 years ago, you started to see an explosion of folks doing of this category like EdTech, and you have a lot of point solutions. I think the market is much more mature now. And so to build something of scale and that is sustainable, I think it's very difficult for point solution products in the market. And that wasn't the case when we started. But it's a natural evolution that I've often said, the technology stack in a school is like spaghetti bolognese, right? I mean, it's just a mess. But the advancement of multi-academy trusts, which I think is a good thing, but also we're now in this era where historically you had schools in the early days that were part of an MAT purely from a legal entity, and folks at the MAT couldn't really do anything. So now we've gone through this unwinding process where contracts are expired, and you've got folks at the MAT, smart folks, that can actually put in place strategic plans, whether that's for IT, whether that's for school libraries or whatever it might be, pedagogy, behavior. And I think that's an exciting thing, that folks at MAT can start to make more joined up thinking decisions. And so I think with those things coming into play, I think it is difficult for an innovative EdTech startup that's doing a point solution. You might get 10 schools, 50 schools, 100 schools, but to scale, I'm talking specifically here in the UK, I think it's not it's not easy. And so you really have to have something that is beyond a chat GTP wrapper and actually have something that really is innovative and adds significant value. And it doesn't have to be whizzy, but it definitely has to solve a significant problem, and it has to be 10 times better, not incrementally better, in order for you to kind of get past that 50, 100 schools mark. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. I could be completely wrong. I probably am completely wrong, but thought I'd share that.
No, I totally agree with you. What about you, Lou? What do you think?
I'd say, in fact, I always come back to this one. I love every January walking around Excel at the Vet Show and reading all of the company taglines. And there's obviously hundreds and hundreds of companies there. And it is so difficult to understand what 90% of them do. And I think if somebody was starting out, it's really about boiling down what it is and what's the value that you add versus the rest of the competition, and being really, really clear about that from day one, and avoiding the many hundreds of edtech solutions out there where I still don't know what they do. And I'll look forward to walking around Excel again in January thinking the same probably, but one year it might change and I hope it does. But yeah, I think it's just being really clear yourself internally about where you're going, and that does all come back to knowing what the mission is, definitely.
Totally with you. I think there's too much. I think the thing is, when it's led really heavily by a technology part of, then I think the business that suddenly wants to throw out all its features and say, "This is what we do." Think about what the value is you're delivering. Ultimately, not enough people think about the value and the benefit to the to the customer, and they sort of go, "We do AI." Excellent. For what reason? We just wrapped it, like you said, Naimish. Excellent. Yeah, great. So yeah, really do. I agree. I think the value proposition should be the most standout piece. It should be the thing that everyone understands you for, and it should be emotive. At the end of the day, that it's what you're delivering to the customer. What how are they going to feel about it at the end? Cool. Thanks very much for your time. I know you're really busy people, and I feel we've actually gone over the sort of the hour as well. So I totally apologize, but thank you very much for sure. I think in summary, I think people listening, for all the schools listening and Matt, I think really do look at your the solutions out there, and don't necessarily just pick on the ones that you sort of go, well, these ones are the biggest. So we feel safe and secure. Now look at all the other sort of solutions out there. At the end of the day, it's all about meeting your own needs, and sometimes they're different to others. So don't think that basically one system fits all, because they don't necessarily. I think I love the fact that you guys talk about delighting customers, about innovation. I think that's really, really important. I think that's where we need to get to within the tech space. I know there's lots of other companies out there innovative as well, but I think the companies like yourselves need to be we need to basically be highlighting what innovation can achieve and what it can deliver to the marketplace. I'd also argue, and I'm putting the words in your mouth, but if there's any mats or schools out there and you want to talk about your needs and how technology can meet those needs, then I would say come and talk to you guys. And I'm sure even if it's not right there now, it'd be something that you can basically talk about and give them advice. And I think that's going to be that's really important as well, regarding those sort of building of relationships between the edtech companies I was talking about and schools and Matt's. So massive big thank you for your time. It's been excellent talking to you, and really insightful in the sense of what Satchel does and what you believe.
Thank you, Nick. It's been really interesting conversation.
Cool.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Nick, for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
No, the pleasure is all mine, I assure you.